Hey, what's going on, guys? Listen, I want to apologize, man. It has been one crazy morning. Um, every time I've tried to go live today, something has went wrong. First time 9:45, uh, computer crashes, nothing works on no site. Absolutely had to just kind of close everything and restart everything. All my videos, everything I had queued up, gone. And so then the next time I was going to go live, just a few seconds ago, you guys will still hear me, but I'm working on something behind the scenes, and it didn't work either. So man, hopefully the sound is coming through okay, um, and hopefully we can get this thing underway now. And so let's get into man what we're here to do, man. And so now got everything fixed, I believe. So let's get this thing going. So I know you saw in the title, and I know we're kind of going live an hour late. And so nobody may be in here, and that's cool. So hopefully, whenever you catch the video, whether live or whether it's in the record, that's totally fine. Do me a quick favor, hit like, hit subscribe if you're here. And so the title of this video, man, was Lamar Jackson versus the Baltimore Ravens. And it's funny how Ravens content creation is working right now. It seems like we kind of end up with the same heartbeat. Uh, I watched Coach Evans live last night. Um, and I believe it was just last night or maybe it was Thursday night, but he was talking about a very similar topic, concerning the Baltimore Ravens fan base, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then Nitro, he also had the same subject, or a very similar subject, not maybe the same. And so I don't know if we heard the same commentary earlier this weekend. It kind of sparked it, but I ran across something, and I can't even remember who said it or what was said actually, but I ran across something earlier this week that kind of sparked this topic. And so when I say Baltimore Ravens versus Lamar Jackson or Lamar Jackson versus the Baltimore Ravens, I don't really mean they're actually in a fight, but I do kind of lean into the idea or the mentality that the Baltimore Ravens have not done a great job supporting Lamar Jackson and all the success he's brought to the Ravens. And in some aspects, it definitely seems like the Baltimore Ravens fan base has been split, um, kind of over the subject. Um, it kind of seems like that we have been kind of debating or been at odds with one another when it came to um, which side of the fence we lean on. Good morning, Eric, um, Mike, um, and anybody else I missed so far. Like I said, I'm trying to actually just catch up with myself. But in truth, man, it just really seems like the Ravens nation has been split, and I don't think we've been this split in a long time. Um, you know, I don't really know when this kind of disruption began, right? I don't know when uh Ravens Nation began to begin split to between Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Maybe it was 2019 after the MVP season. Maybe it was 2020 when we felt like the Baltimore Ravens didn't really support Lamar. Maybe the split came when we had some playoff failures. Maybe the split came when Lamar Jackson had two back-to-back seasons where he was injured and didn't finish the season. Maybe it was the split came when um, Lamar Jackson didn't come back for the playoff game that the Ravens lost against the Bengals, right? Where Tyler Huntley fumbles the ball, Sam Hubbard returns it 90 plus yards for a touchdown. Maybe that's when it split. Maybe we had been listening to a lot of national sports media who has had up until the last year, maybe an anti-Lamar Jackson kind of lean, kind of slant. I'm not sure when the split began in Ravens Nation, but it does exist. And I really began to notice it once I began to invest a little more time into talking about the Ravens when we started the GM. And I saw a lot of negative commentary. And this is really not a defense of Lamar Jackson. I'm just going to make a point um, here in a minute, kind of in the context of what I'm definitely speaking to. But when you saw the contract dispute, so to speak, it was really a contract dispute that had gone on probably a year and a half too long. A dispute that kind of began when Josh Allen got his money and saw several other quarterbacks of lesser performances get their money, and then Lamar Jackson actually had to play out the fifth year option and still had no contract. And so the fact of the matter is that there was a split. There was fans talking about just move on from Lamar, trade him, so on and so forth, and kind of a sneaky slash deceptive kind of move from the Baltimore Ravens organization was when they placed the transitional tag on him, pretending as if there was really going to be a market for him. Um, and so in truth, that was just a hoax, right? There is I made a video and I talked about top of the morning to you as well. Um, I made a video talking about how uh, there is an understanding around the league, all 32 teams. There is an agreement that you don't come after another team's franchise quarterback unless they want to move off of him. There was no indication, absolutely none, where the Baltimore Ravens really wanted to move on from Lamar Jackson. And so putting that transitional tag, they absolutely knew that nobody was going to come out to Lamar Jackson. Why? Because that is the standard around the league. And when I made that, some people agreed, some people disagreed, but then there was a video that came out where there was some former pro athletes and they were commentating about how that was an understanding around the league. Nevertheless, the split is real. And at one point, I thought you could kind of see that there was 60% of Ravens Nation pro organization. That means pro Ravens. And there was another 40% was pro Lamar. And I've been, reading some commentary. I've been watching some other content creators, and I'll just pay attention to what, excuse me, I'll just pay attention to what other um, audiences are saying, and I'm starting to see an increase where um, it's not so much pro Ravens, 60%, pro Lamar, 40%. It seems to be more of a balance, 50-50, where I'm seeing more and more fans say, you know what, the Ravens haven't done a great service to Lamar. Um, uh, morning to you. The Ravens have done a disservice to Lamar Jackson, and uh, and he may have to leave Baltimore to win a chip. And I'm seeing more and more of those commentaries. So you guys let me know what you think. Do you think it's 50-50 now? You have more pro Lamar fans, excuse me, pro Lamar only versus the Ravens, or more still more pro Ravens, actually the organization. Nevertheless, however, the split, let's get into the conversation. Here's why I'm saying it's kind of Lamar Jackson versus the Ravens. You see, I've never seen an organization have a no doubt Hall of Famer. You know, he's a Hall of Famer in his first 7 seasons. Have a no doubt Hall of Famer who has done as much for the team to kind of keep them on the winning side of things. And they've kind of dragged their feet to really kind of support him. And it became this narrative for me when I began to look at what other organizations do when they feel like they have a franchise quarterback, or even before they feel like they have a franchise quarterback. Let me give you an example. Let's take the Carolina Panthers, for example. They moved up and they took Bryce Young. And no matter how Bryce Young has performed, you have still seen the Carolina Panthers, who haven't won a whole lot in a long time. You still saw them go out and put 150-ish million dollars just into the offensive line. Now they didn't get him any wide receivers necessarily. Adam Thielen is still his best wide receiver, but when you go out and you put that kind of money into your offensive line, that's for who? That's for your running back. Excuse me, that's for your quarterback, right? They went out and built the interior offensive line. They already had a nice piece at right tackle, and they already had a first round pick, a high first round pick in the left tackle. And so the fact of the matter is, so when you even have a losing franchise, and I hate to call a franchise losing. I see you, Jay Will. I hate to call a franchise losing, but the Panthers have been a losing franchise, and they still went out and made effort to build for Bryce Young. They went out into the draft and got a first round pick at wide receiver to help out Bryce Young. They picked up another guy, Jalen Coker, which I wish we had picked him up, but he looks pretty solid. Um, and so I think that we've seen some effort. I hear what you're saying, Eric, and I agree with that. I agree with that. And so it is definitely hard to win a championship, and that's what I'm going to get into. And this is why I'm saying what I'm saying. So when I say Lamar Jackson versus the Ravens, I'm not saying they're really fighting one another. I'm saying the effort from the Ravens looks a lot different than what you see around the league. But let's move on from the Panthers as an example, and let's look at some winning franchises, right? I'm going to do it from the 2018 draft. Matter of fact, let's do it from the 2019 draft, and we'll come this way because we didn't know what we had in Lamar Jackson in 2018. Let's just be honest, we didn't. But after the 2019 season, it was super, super clear that the Baltimore Ravens had a franchise guy. And so let's look at the guys in his draft class. Baker went one, and Josh Allen went two. There was a couple of other guys, but we won't get into them. But when you look at what the Cleveland Browns did for Baker, right? And when we understand, people make fun around the league of the Cleveland Browns, but what I've saw from them is they have made some efforts to, get better. Nevertheless, Nevertheless, when you look at what the Cleveland Browns did uh, for Baker, is that what did they do? They said, "Hey, we got a number one overall pick. He's a quarterback. They already had a solid offensive line. Let's go get Odell." And after they got Odell, they went out and brought in Jarvis Landry. Now, no matter what you thought about Odell at the time that the Cleveland Browns got him, and no matter what you thought about Jarvis Landry, they still were viable options in the NFL. They still had some game left, right? And so what you saw even from the Cleveland Browns is that they went out and they're trying to build around their young quarterback. Even when and all Baker had done is make the playoffs his rookie season. Well, that's the same thing Lamar Jackson had done. right? But if you remember, I'm talking about from the 2019 season, the conclusion of 2019, we understood what we had. And so when you look at what the Cleveland Browns did, they continue. They already had a nice back in Nick Chubb. They added a couple of pieces. I think they added Kareem Hunt after that, or maybe Kareem Hunt was already there and he moved on after his incident of domestic violence. Nevertheless, you continue to see Cleveland try and do some things. They added David and Joku, a really good tight end. So they continue to try and build around um, Baker Mayfield. I get it. The Baltimore Ravens historically are a defensive organization, run the ball type organization, and that's fine. But when you have that guy, you have to make the efforts to support him. But let's move off of Baker and let's jump down to Josh Allen. Okay, Josh Allen came in the same year. Now from the 2019 season, right? The Bills were sure about Josh Allen. And so what did they do? It wasn't long after the 2019 season, the Bills went out and got him a number one wide receiver. They already had a credible offensive line. And the only thing the Bills had failed to do for Josh Allen was what? Add a top end running back, not the best, but a top end running back to support him in the run game. And so uh, the fact of the matter is, so now you see the Buffalo Bills continue to do what they need to do to build around their young um, quarterback. And Stefan Diggs did nothing more than go, I think, 3 straight years, if my memory serves me correctly, of 1,200 plus yards. And I know that number may be a little higher than that. And so and then also what you saw from the Buffalo Bills is they made sure they kept that offensive line intact, right? There wasn't a year where the Buffalo Bills was just scrapping the offensive line, throwing them out, and then trotting in some novice, some guys who didn't have credible, um, not incredible, but credible play in the NFL. That's why they had a top three offensive line this past season because the Bills understand that we keep this offensive line straight, we can help out the quarterback. And so um, let's look at the 2019 draft. So we're talking about the completion of 2019, what the Baltimore Ravens understood. The 2019 draft, you had Kyler Murray, who was the number one overall pick. And what did the Cardinals immediately go out and do? They brought in a guy like an AJ Green, who still had some game left from the Bengals. They brought him in free agency, and then they went out and traded for DeAndre Hopkins. That's an immediate. That's an immediate attempt to build around and support your quarterback. Then they brought in a good back like a James Conner, and then I think they added I can't remember his name, but they added a guy we actually brought him in a couple of seasons ago, a running back. I can't remember his name, but they also added him out there in Arizona to do what? Support their quarterback. And hey, what's going on, Sip to Tally? Coach, good to see you in here. I definitely respect your acumen, so I definitely want to hear your feedback as we move forward. But yeah, and so when you look at just what the Cardinals did for Kyler Murray, who had not proven anything. See, this is my point. We understood going into that 2020 offseason what we had in Lamar Jackson, right? And I'm not here to say that the Ravens EDC, John Harbaugh didn't do anything. Yes, we probably have drafted the most wide receivers in the league. Yes, we had a great tight end room, but can we tell the truth? Okay. Mark Andrews nor Hayden Hurst in the 2018 draft, neither one of those dudes were drafted to support Lamar Jackson. So we can't use that as effort. We can't use that as an attempt that the Baltimore Ravens did anything. How do we know that they weren't drafted for Lamar Jackson? Well, number one, the Ravens didn't even know that they were going to be able to get Lamar Jackson until he was still on the board at pick 32. If you got to remember, they drafted Hayden Hurst with that 25th pick or whatever the pick was. So if Hayden Hurst was drafted before Lamar Jackson, that means Hayden Hurst was drafted to play with who? Joe Flacco, right? And so Mark Andrews then was drafted to play with Joe Flacco. How do we know? Because Lamar Jackson did not start that season and may not have ever started in that 2018 season unless Joe Flacco went down with injury. So we can't even use Hayden Hurst and Mark Andrews. But let's kind of see if we can speed this thing up because I want to get to the second half of this conversation as well, which is about the draft. Nevertheless, so now we're looking at the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson going into like the 2021 season, which I think was the first season he went down with injury, followed by the 2022 season. But the Ravens were bringing in guys like Dez Bryant, Deshaun Jackson. Both of those dudes were done basically. They brought in a Sammy Watkins who was better served as a third or fourth option, not a number one, or definitely not a number one, and definitely not a number two, based on what we saw in his game. Those were the free agents the Baltimore Ravens were going out and getting, right? But but let's do a comparison. Let's jump back and let's talk about to the 2020 draft. Um, let's talk about the 2020 draft. Um, the 2020 draft brought us Joe Burrow, right? We're only going to talk about two quarterbacks from that draft because I don't remember who else was drafted. The 2020 draft brought us Joe Burrow, and then it brought us Jalen Hurts, right? Now, when Joe Burrow was drafted, uh, they immediately, that being the Bengals, immediately drafted T. Higgins in that second round. Joe Burrow immediately had a number one tight wide receiver, even though he hadn't played it down in the NFL. Big body, large catch radius, good speed, all those kind of things. Now, nobody knew what was going to happen with T. Higgins, but it turned out very well. You got to remember, in that rookie season, uh, Joe Burrow lucked into an injury. I know that sounds crazy, but let me tell you what I mean. It was because Joe Burrow got injured that they were able to get a top 10 pick and take who? Jamar Chase. Now let's understand. They already had T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, but they went ahead and drafted Jamar Chase. Why? Because that would support their quarterback. That's what you do when you believe you have that guy at quarterback. Yes, they took Joe Burrow number one, so you're supposed to support him. But even though Lamar Jackson went 32, you understood what you had after a season and a half of him being under center. And so whenever we do a comparison between Lamar Jackson, I don't compare them at all. They're distinctly different. But when people talk about Joe Burrow versus Lamar Jackson, what we have to also include is that Joe Burrow has played from 2021, 22, and 23. I think Tyler Boyd left last offseason. He has played with the best trio of wide receivers. And let's be honest, he looks different when he doesn't have both those big studs in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But that's not the conversation here or there. My point is you can see the organization surrounding their quarterback. And then you had the Bengals go out and do what to support Joe Burrow? Let me get Orlando Brown. Sign him to a big deal. Put him at left tackle. Then they go out and get Amarius Mims. Put him at where? Right tackle. Book in. Both them dudes are 6'8", 315 plus pounds, right? So, um, hey, what's going on, sir? Um, both of these guys are big bookends. So, what you've seen the Bengals do, one, identify who they are and identify what they're going to do. The Bengals are going to throw the ball all over the field and challenge you to match them point for point. That's what the Bengals are going to do. And so you see the Bengals building around their quarterback. You saw the Browns building around their quarterback. You see the Buffalo Bills building around their quarterback. But now let's jump, same draft, 2020. Let's jump to Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts comes in. And a lot of people try to compare him to Lamar Jackson, but he and Lamar Jackson, again, their games are different. The only real similarity is that they both run well with the ball. But athleticism, quickness, elusiveness, speed, it's no comparison. So I'm done with comparisons and quarterbacks. Now I can compare outcomes, results, things of that nature. And so people are calling Jalen Hurts a game manager. That don't really matter to me. He went home with the chip this year, and we're still waiting on the chip in Baltimore. But when you look at um, but when you look at the who am I thinking about? Jalen Hurts. So when you look at what Jalen Hurts has actually done, okay, bam, they drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round. Now they didn't draft Devontae Smith for Jalen Hurts; he was already drafted. Nor did the Philadelphia Eagles bring in Dallas Goddard or Zach Ertz to help out Jalen Hurts. He was already there, right? Nor am I saying that the Philadelphia Eagles built an offensive line to support Jalen Hurts. It was already in place. The point that I'm making is that after they got Hurts, after Hurts had proven he could play, what did they do? They consistently brought in talent to uphold the standard of the offensive line. That's why they've had the best offensive line running for about 3 years straight. Okay. And then not only did they continue the standard at offensive line for Jalen Hurts, what did they do immediately? After one season, they traded for AJ Brown, right? Isn't that what they did? Well, AJ Brown don't play cornerback. AJ Brown don't play linebacker or edge. He plays offense. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles already had um, a top 10 pick at wide receiver in Devontae Smith, but they went out and doubled up. You follow what I'm saying? So the Philadelphia Eagles go out and double up at wide receiver, and then they go make the Super Bowl, right? Why? Why did they go make the Super Bowl? Because they maintain a standard, and then when they can, they add to the standard. But let's keep talking about the Eagles for a moment. And so then you fast forward all the way to the 2024 off season. This past, well, not this season, but last season, off season. What do? They go out and they sign Saquon Barkley, and they sign him to the larger of the deals for the running backs last year, right? And he did nothing more than come out and get busy behind the standard of offensive line, right? Well, who did they sign Saquon Barkley to support? Jalen Hurts. How do we know? Because Saquon Barkley don't play quarterback. He plays running back, right? And so when you talk about Jalen Hurts being a game manager, you know what? If I had the kind of talent around him from offensive line to running back to tight end to wide receiver that he had, if Lamar Jackson had that same level of talent, I would be Lamar Jackson would be more of a game manager too. And and so and so that's why it's looking like it's Lamar Jackson versus the Ravens. And I'll deepen that conversation here in a minute. Um so who else? Who else are we thinking? Let's move forward to let's look at guys like Justin Herbert, and we're also going to talk about Trevor Lawrence. Now, these two dudes hadn't done much, right? Now they've been in the league at this point, should be 4 seasons. I think they came in 21, 1, 22, 23, 24. Yeah, they played for 4 seasons. Okay, they've already got paid, right? And if you look at Trevor Lawrence, the Jacksonville Jaguars have continually tried to bring in offensive talent to support him. They bring in offensive line talent. They bring in Travis Etienne, a guy that Trevor Lawrence was familiar with from Clemson. They brought in Evan Ingram. They brought in Zay Jones. They brought in Christian Kirk. They brought in Gabe Davis. They're continuing to try and help out. Um, they 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 continue to bring in pieces to help out. Hey, what's going on, Black Daniels? I'm trying to get this message out. Uh, but they continue to build around their quarterback, right? And so when you really think about it, okay, okay. Um, and so when you really think about it, you continue to see teams have a franchise guy, identify a franchise guy, and continue to build around that quarterback. Um, and then when you look at Justin Herbert, okay, bam, he stepped into a solid situation. He stepped into the Chargers. They already had Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and I think you guys correct me if I'm wrong. I think the tight end who ended up going to the um, the Patriots. I think he was still there at the time. He was a good tight end, top. I think he was a first round draft pick. But but nevertheless, uh, he was there too. So he stepped into a good situation, right? And then what did the Chargers immediately start doing? They started trying to build the offensive line to protect him, right? Even to the point of last draft, they drafted Joe Alt in the top 10 to do what? To protect the quarterback. Okay. So Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, they were injured, they were in and out of the lineup. So they put Mike Williams on the street. They just brought him back, by the way, and they traded Keenan Allen to the Chicago Bears. Now, okay, but what did they do immediately? They didn't pull a they didn't pull a Baltimore Ravens move where you trade away the leading wide receiver as they did with uh, Brown and didn't replace him. They go out 2 years straight. Jordan Adams, I think I got his name correct, and also Lad McConkey, right? And so who does that support? It supports the quarterback. Listen, I know it seems like I'm ignoring the defense, but I'm not. Actually, what I'm doing is I'm simply talking about how it looks like other teams know what they have in their quarterback position and they immediately start trying to build something for that guy. But with the Baltimore Ravens concluding the 2019 season, I give you 2018, nobody knew. 2019, nobody knew until that season was concluded what we had in the quarterback position, right? And I know that Hollywood wanted a trade, but yet and still they traded him and did not replace him. That's the point that I'm making. You trade away the 1,000-yard receiver and you don't replace him. So it's like I'm gonna give you $100. If we're making an exchange, I'm gonna give you $100 and you give me one back in Monopoly money. That don't add up. And so and so now let's bring it all the way to the current day, right? When you look at the most recent um, example, CJ Stroud, right? CJ Stroud comes into the league, plays really good. And uh, what do the Houston Texans immediately start doing? Okay, this offense is straight, but let's go out and get Danielle Hunter to make the defense better. Now they already got a nice back end um, for the Houston Texans, and they're gonna have to start getting paid just so Stingley break the bank at cornerback, and you're gonna see more of that. But what did Houston do? Okay, they looked at where they were weak and they start building, right? They bring in Danielle Hunter. They, of course, they drafted the same draft with C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson, and so they brought bookends. They've consistently tried to work out something with that offensive line. And then this past offseason, what do? They make a move and they go get Stephon Diggs. Why? Trying to support the QB. And that's all that I'm saying, right? But now let's walk down the Baltimore Ravens path, right? 2020, I'm not disputing that the Baltimore Ravens tried to do some things in the draft. 2021, they drafted Rashad Bateman, specifically talking about offense. 2022, that's when we picked up Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kolar, Daniel Falele, so on and so forth. And those guys, have been able to plug in and give some solid contributions, right? 2023 they picked up Zay, and then 2024 draft. No, 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 no. Yeah, 2024 draft they picked up Tez. Okay, I'm cool with the draft capital that they spent when you look at the draft capital. But my problem has been, I've stated it from the very beginning, okay? When you can't grab that piece you need to solidify at the wide receiver position, then go get a guy. Think about all of the draft capital they used to try and find somebody to help out Lamar Jackson when you just can go the same draft picks you just used, all those players, Miles Borkins, um, shoot, what's his name? Devin Duvernay, Tylan Wallace, Rashad, um, uh, uh, it's so many. It's probably about at least 10 wide receivers. I can't remember all of them, but many picks, many picks that the Baltimore Ravens spent, and we're just now getting return on investment from Rashad Bateman. And I know injuries play a part in everything, but the point I'm making is that there was opportunity to go out and get a guy. You know, uh, I talked about DeAndre Hopkins has moved twice in the Lamar Jackson era, post him proving himself. Um, a guy like a AJ Brown moved in the Lamar Jackson era, post him validating who he was. Stephon Diggs moved twice in the Lamar Jackson era after he had shown who he was. And I'm not just talking about wide receiver. I'll get to something else in a minute. Let me see. DK Metcalf just moved after Lamar Jackson had validated himself with two MVPs. Debo Samuel just moved after two MVPs, and which probably should have been a third MVP. So the point that I'm making is that um, it doesn't seem to be a priority to really build, right? To really build on this offense. It looks very clear to me that defense has been the priority, and and uh and it's disappointing, right? Because you see all of the other efforts. We have about seven, eight, nine examples of teams on purpose, not drafting necessarily, but going out and purposely grabbing guys, whether it was in free agency or whether it was via trade, grabbing guys to play. And so, um, Easy loves. um, uh, and I'm not just putting this on EDC because this has to be an organizational approach. This has to be EDC plus John Harbaugh plus Steve Bisciotti signing off on it. And again, it just looks like it is a Lamar Jackson versus the Baltimore Ravens. It looks as if um, they're not working with one another, but against one another, right? When you look at the offensive line, okay, let me start with the comment that I mentioned a couple of days ago. EDC says, hey, next year, he said this last offseason, next year's offensive line will be better than what? This year's offensive line. EDC, what are you talking about? Do we just ignore the current season and jump to next year's offensive line? But let's talk about that, right? All of your franchise level guys has had at least one left tackle brought in via free agency or drafted in top rounds, first or second rounds. Where is the left tackle being drafted for the future for the Ravens? Where is the left tackle being drafted the 3 years that Ronnie Stanley was hurt? There was plenty of ample opportunity to draft a couple of left tackles. Where is the left guard in the top two rounds? Don't give me third round picks. Don't give me fourth round picks. Where's the left guard to protect and secure the interior? Where is the right guard? Right? Think about it. Every opportunity we had to secure proven offensive linemen, we let them walk. When Orlando Brown had proven himself, no matter, and I know some people don't like Orlando Brown, right? Uh, but when Orlando Brown had validated himself as a top end tackle, what did we do? We traded him away to the eventual champs, and we didn't replace him. When Ben Powers, I'm pretty sure that Ben's name was Powers. When Ben Powers had proven himself at left guard, what did we do? We let him walk over to the Denver Broncos, and he became a Pro Bowler. When Kevin Zeitler and I know that the Baltimore Ravens wanted to get younger, I understand that. But when Kevin Zeitler had proven himself back to back to back years, what did we do? We let him walk in free agency, and he did go. I think it was Detroit. He did go to Detroit and perform well. And what we did instead, and what we have done instead, other than Ronnie Stanley and other than Tyler Lindenbaum, we went with novice. We went with a questionable Voorhees. I'm see, and I'm saying Voorhees over Makari. Here's why. Here's why. Because Makari wasn't the starter. He replaced Voorhees after Voorhees went down with injury. And obviously, Voorhees could not regain his starting spot because, kind of code in the NFL is that you can't lose your position to what? Injury, right? You went with the Daniel Falele at 6'8", 380-pound Daniel Falele, who you had to understand couldn't move that well, even playing tackle, but to put him at a brand new position. See, these are the moves that were made in the midst of what I believe is a Super Bowl window. No other quarterback has to go through these kind of things. No other quarterback loses three starting offensive linemen from the previous season in the midst of a Super Bowl window and get replaced. You see, I'm not I'm not saying I'm not simply saying that the Baltimore Ravens have done anything intentionally to not promote what Lamar Jackson is doing. But what I am saying is they haven't done a whole lot with intent, right? Guard Jenkins, from the Chicago Bears, he laid out there for 2.5 weeks of free agency. And what do we need? We need guard play, right? He laid out there in free agency. We didn't do anything. Now he's picked up. I can't even remember who signed him. Um, we've been wetting the pants about getting some depth at pass rush. Audrey Leary laid out there, and we didn't do anything. Got him picked up for $4 million. Mekhi Becton laid out there. I'm thinking about offensive linemen and what we could have done and we didn't do. Offensive lineman Mekhi Becton laid out there last offseason, late, late, late. I said many, many times in many, many videos, the Baltimore Ravens need to pick up Mekhi Becton, put him at left guard, pick up Mekhi Becton, put him at left guard. Well, one of the smartest GMs in the league. Matter of fact, the smartest GM in the league. What does he do? Pick up Mekhi Becton, plug him in at left guard, and they balled. And so the disappointment is that the Ravens don't seem to have really made it a priority. I know when they get in EDC, John Harbaugh, when they get into press conferences and things like that, they have a lot of press conference speech, right? We love Lamar, we're going to build around him. We love Lamar, we're going to build around him. And what actually happens is not what we've actually heard. And so I wanted them to take a more aggressive approach this season, right? I wanted them to really go out and plug the holes on the offensive line, so that when we're not depending on the draft and rookies to sustain what we're trying to do on offense. But nevertheless, let's see, it's hard to complain. Uh, yeah, I don't disagree with you, Jeremiah, but and I'm not really complaining necessarily about the Ravens, more than I'm talking about how it doesn't look like they made enough of the effort to build around um, Lamar Jackson with better talent. And I'm gonna hit something, and then we're gonna talk about the draft. Um, Let me switch screens. So if I miss your, if I don't see your comments, please forgive me. I'm switching screens because I got to upload something, and so I won't be able to see them for a moment. Um, Dang, where's my windows? I got like 50 windows open. Let's see if this is it. Oh, there we are. And so and so here's the thing, man. I'm not really complaining about the Baltimore Ravens organization. We've been a winning organization, but we have to begin to tell the truth about something. We've been winning on the strength of Lamar Jackson, right? I am glad that the Baltimore Ravens, did resign Ronnie Stanley. But you know why we resigned Ronnie Stanley? You know why we put $20 million in Ronnie Stanley? Yeah, he's a good left tackle. But we put $20 million in Ronnie Stanley because in from 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and the 2024 draft, in 6 seasons, we never drafted a left tackle. That's why we had to put $20 million in Ronnie Stanley. I'm not knocking him. Hope he comes out, hope he balls, hope he stays healthy. But that's the reason why we had to put $20 million in the left tackle position because we don't have a viable option that we've brought in and helped and allowed him to develop while we wait on Ronnie Stanley to reach the end of his contract. That's why we had to put that money into Ronnie Stanley. When you look across that offensive line, there's no money invested. Let's just talk real. There's no money invested in that offensive line. I get it. Rosengarten, a second-year player. Daniel Falele is a fourth-year player going into this season, is what I mean. Tyler Linderbaum is going into his fourth year, I believe. And then Voorhees, or I guess it's Voorhees. Voorhees is his third year now. But there's no money. There hasn't been no money invested in the offense for real. Think about what I'm saying. You paid Lamar Jackson, but you had to pay him. You didn't have a choice, right? But it's not Lamar Jackson's contract that has held up the Baltimore Ravens. And so, please, that makes my ears hurt when people say that. Oh, it's Lamar Jackson's contract that doesn't allow the Baltimore Ravens to do a whole lot in free agency. That's not true. It's the $100 million that was given to Roquan Smith that disables the Baltimore Ravens. It was the $100 million given to Meta BK that disables. Now, am I saying throw them away? No, 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 no. But what I'm saying is let's not make it that easy to say Lamar Jackson's contract is the issue because there was other opportunities to put money into other places. You've heard me say this before. You take the $100 million you gave Roquan, you bust that down, you got two $50 million contracts. That sounds like some quality players right there. You take the $100 million you gave to Meta BK, you bust that down, you got two $50 million contracts. That sounds like some quality players right there. And so And so there was definitely opportunity to redistribute the money, and they didn't. And so I'm not tripping. I'm just simply saying, man, it just looks like we're being out GM'd from year to year to year. Let me give you another example. I just not thought about it, and then we're going to close this conversation. So another example, you look at a team like what's them guys' names? The Commanders. Jaden Daniels came out, balls out his rookie season, leads them to the NFC championship. The Commanders have no question what they have. They have no question what they have at quarterback. Terry McLaurin. Now, in truth, they didn't bring in McLaurin for um, Daniels. He was already there. But the proof is in the pudding. What did they do immediately after the season was over? They traded for Debo Samuel. Now, whether Debo is a game changer or not, you still see the effort that they put in to build around Jaden Daniels. Somebody correct me if I'm incorrect. Was it the Commanders who traded for Laramie Tunsil? Um, I think that it was. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that it was Laramie Tunsil that the Commanders picked up. Which is what? If the Commanders did trade for Laramie Tunsil, what does that mean? They understand what they have in Jaden Daniels. Therefore, they made a move to build around him. And that's all that I'm saying. That's all. That's my only point. And so that's why it seems like uh that's why it seems like we thank you, Jay Will, for that. If you're responding to me, was it the Commanders that traded for Laramie Tunsil? So I'm saying look at the effort, man. Look at see that's what I mean. Look at the teams who recognize that they got their franchise quarterback and look at what they do to support that franchise quarterback versus in truth, what did the Baltimore Ravens um what did the Baltimore Ravens really what have they really done? I agree. Stanley was better last year, but I'm not I see again it's super super easy to see how the Ravens nation can get divided. I'm not. That's why I say it's Lamar Jackson versus the people who are pro Ravens, and I'm not saying that for you, Jeremiah. I'm simply saying What I'm leaning into is I'm comparing what you've seen other franchises do. I'm talking about actively do. I'm not talking about what they see. There's a difference between actively doing something and allowing something to happen. Yes, Stanley was better, but how many years before Stanley being better last season was Stanley unable to perform? 3 consecutive years. You got to remember at the end of the 23-24 season, if I got my seasons correct, he was on a rotational pitch count. And so I'm not saying they should have got rid of him. That's not what I'm saying. I'm simply saying we had to pay Stanley that kind of money because there was nobody via draft or trade that they had brought in to substantiate the backup position behind Ronnie Stanley. No different, please hear me, no different than there was nobody substantial available at left guard when Ben Powers left. There was nobody substantial behind Kevin Zeitler when they moved on from him. There was nobody in-house substantial behind Morgan Moses when they traded him away. That's why they end up drafting Roger Rosengarten in the draft. Am I saying they should have kept any or all of them? No, no, sir, and no, ma'am. What I'm simply saying is there was nobody there. There was injuries do happen. I don't disagree with that. But because injuries happen, right? That's why there should have been somebody substantial already in place because injuries happen. Let me ask you guys a question. Think about what I'm going to ask you. Okay. Let's jump to the defense side of the ball really, really quick. We have, let's go cornerback. We have Marlon Humphrey, Nate, and TJ Tampa. But what are we saying? Even though we got three pieces who can step in immediately, right? And play. But what are we saying this offseason we need? A cornerback, right? And we're talking about we need a cornerback in two places. We need a cornerback from free agency and we need a cornerback in the draft. Why? Because you need somebody substantial just in case injuries happen, right? At edge rush, there is right now in under contract, you got Odafe, you got Tavius Robinson, you got Calvin Noy, you got David Ajabo, and you got Adisa Isaac, right? All players that were brought in between the first and the fourth rounds over the last 5 seasons. Okay. If Odafe Owe goes down or if Calvin Noy goes down, there is substantial, I'm not saying they are game changers, but there is substantial depth already where in place. We're not running around trying to find depth. This past off season, when we let 3 of the 5 starters go, we had to go find guys. And I do mean find because Voorhees was no guarantee. He drafted injured. Nobody knew what he was going to be. Patrick McCarry was in house, but the Q&A around Patrick McCarry this past season was could he hold up as a full-time starter? And so let's see. Let me see what you guys are saying. Hold on one second. Let me switch back to the chat. And so quarterback, cornerback is in. Listen, I love see this is why I love talking about ball, right? And that's part of the reason why our name will change. The name here at the gym will change after we reach that 1,000 subscriber mark, is because I love talking ball, right? I love talking ball about the Ravens. Well, I love talking Ravens, but I love talking ball in general. And let me be very, very clear. I'm not the smartest football fan, and I don't always have to be right in the kind of context that I present, but I'm right in this context. I'm not disputing anybody in the chat about anything in particular. I'm simply saying, okay, let me be clear. We're gonna close it out and we're gonna jump to the draft. Hope you guys stay in here, man. I wanna show you guys something from the draft that I got put together. Jeremiah Coach. If I can borrow another 20 minutes of your time, your guys' conversation, Black Daniels, um, uh, and whoever else is in here, please stay plugged in because I want to get you guys' opinions on some draft stuff that I'm going to talk about here in a second. But let me close out the Lamar Jackson versus the Baltimore Ravens. Let me be clear. Let me close the door on this conversation. When I say Lamar Jackson versus the Baltimore Ravens, I'm not literally talking about a fight. I'm not literally talking about an intent to hurt or harm. I'm talking about a lack of effort or approach. Okay. We have to be honest enough in our commentary when it concerns the Ravens. Let's be clear. I think we all, no matter what side we land on, whether we support organization first, Lamar Jackson second, Lamar Jackson first, Ravens second. This conversation came up because one of the subscribers said, you know what, Lamar Jackson needs to leave the Ravens, and I'm still going to support him. And they talked about how they were upset about, how the Ravens had not supported him, which is something I'd already stated, a long time ago. But I began to see other people talk about this very subject, and I'd already had it on my calendar, my mental calendar, to talk about today. And so when I talk about Lamar versus the Ravens, I'm talking about the approach and the effort. Okay. When I talk about the approach and the effort, right? If I'm going to support the most important position on the field, that's on the team. That's going to be the quarterback. Why? Because they garner most of the money, or the majority of the money offensively, especially when you have a franchise guy. The Baltimore Ravens have been a winning franchise, but we have been winning on the ability of Lamar Jackson. It has not been coaching, and it has not been roster construction. When you look at what we do offensively, okay, here's how you know it's been mostly Lamar. He's been our leading passer, of course, simply because he is the quarterback. But until this past season, when Derrick Henry ran over 1,900 yards, Lamar Jackson has also been our leading rusher. And some people can say that's because of his skill set. You have to use that. I'm not disagreeing with any of that. But if Lamar Jackson was the leading passer and the leading rusher, then his most important weapon or weapons are going to be the five guys that line up where? Right in front of him. And when we look at this Baltimore Ravens offensive line from left to right, if without signing Ronnie Stanley, we would have no choice but to go left tackle in the first round. Why? Because we did not have a viable option there. At left guard, Patrick McCarry leaves, it's a question mark there. We can say we can plug and play Voorhees, but there's no evidence of that. Why? There's no viable option at left guard. No matter what people thought about Daniel Falele, right? He did get better as the season goes on. And if there was a better option, guess what? They may have used a better option, but obviously there must not have been. Okay. And so the two guys that you can be excited about going into next season is Linderbaum and Rosengarten because they're the future. Ronnie Stanley is the now. And when you look at the draft from 2020 all the way through last season's draft, you don't see a left guard drafted high. You don't see a left tackle drafted high. You don't see a right guard drafted high. And you don't see uh, uh, a right tackle drafted high until this past season. What does that say? That say the Baltimore Ravens have rested on their laurels and not built a viable offensive line with quality starting and quality depth. But what you do understand and what you do see is a repetitive process of drafting corners and edges and other position groups versus the most important tool to the quarterback is the offensive line and then who he's going to hand it to and throw it to. Yes, the Ravens have gotten better with supporting him over the last season, but I was just simply doing a comparison of what it looks like between um, other franchises who have franchise quarterbacks and what their efforts have been to what the Baltimore Ravens efforts have been. All right, let's turn the page, man. Let's get into a little bit of the draft, okay? So I kind of want to hear from you guys. Do you guys think that the Baltimore Ravens should trade up, trade down, or stay in place? Um, I can't see if anybody's still here. So, but if you're still here, drop that into the chat. Do you think they should trade up, down, or stay in place? Personally, I do not think that the Baltimore Ravens should pick at 27. I think if we're going best player available at 27, it feels more like it's going to be a project versus um, versus someone who's going to be able to come in and make an immediate impact. So I want to get into our draft conversation. So I I did a little bit of mock drafting, and as you guys know, I believe we should trade down. I would like to see the Baltimore Ravens, because of the conversation we just had, I would like to see the Baltimore Ravens have 4 picks in the first 3 rounds. There is a lot of talent defensively, there's a lot of talent offensively, but your more quality talent is going to be earlier in this draft. And I think that we should put our hands on as many of those quality picks as possible. Excuse me. And so I want to trade down. And so I got 2 trade offers I want to show you guys. The first was this one. It was the Cleveland Browns offering us pick 33 and pick 67, and they wanted 27. And um, I think that 139 is going to land us in the 5th round. I may be incorrect with that. And then the other trade was this one. It was the Kansas City Chiefs offering us pick 31. When we were going to put a trade in, we were going to counter and ask for pick 31 and their 3rd round pick. And so what I did is I went with this one. I went with this pick because that gives us 4 picks in the first 3 rounds, which is what I believe we needed. And so the Baltimore Ravens would reset if they were able to trade back and get this deal. They would reset, and they would actually have 33, 59, 67, and 91. And I believe we could do some real damage in this draft if we had that type of draft capital. And so and so and so what I did was um yeah, I see you guys. I see some trade down um from Deshaun. I see stay at 27 from Jay Will. Let me roll up and see if I missed anybody. Let's see. Roll up, roll down. Okay. Yeah, so I see some stay the same, some trade up, trade down. No, I don't see any trade up. And so Jay Will, before I get into the trade down, tell me who you would take at 27. Deshaun, tell me who you would take in the 1st round at 27 if you guys have anybody in mind. Because I'm gonna show you 3 guys who were available after I took the trade. I'm gonna show you guys who were available, and then I'm gonna see what you guys think concerning uh, these options. Okay, while I wait for you guys to put that in there, let me jump back over to my screen. Hit that. All right. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into our mock draft, and I'm going to show you some guys who are available, and then so you'll see the name, and you'll see some highlights, and then I'm gonna talk about each person. I'm gonna try to get this done in the next 30 minutes, so I don't keep you guys too long. The first part of the conversation was pretty good, and so we stayed in there a little longer than expected. But nevertheless, let's get this thing going.
Just flipped off, intercepted again by Benjamin Morrison. Here goes Morrison down the sideline. Can he go? Yes, he can. Touchdown, Big Six. Who's this first half? Williams, pressure, retreats, and now throws another reception. It's Benjamin Morris.
Blakeman, short throw across the middle.
Depleted today without Shipley. Oh my goodness. Was he lucky to get away with that? Benjamin Morrison saw that coming from their own 40. Brendan Armstrong of the Wolfpack firing one deep, single coverage. It is intercepted by Benjamin Morrison.
Xavier Watts.
All right, so Benjamin Morris was our first candidate, man. He was available at that pick 33. I like what I see from him. I like his tape. Uh, I like his stature. He's a 6 foot, right at 200 pounds. He has good speed. He has good hips, fluidity, and he is a bog. Um, uh, I see safety or guard. Let's see. I see Banks from Coach. I'm with you on that, Coach. If Banks is available, and I've have seen him drop in every mock simulator that I've done, he has been he has been down there. He has been available. So if he's kind of sliding to 27, I can get down with that. I see Starks. I believe they're talking about Malachi Starks safety. Um, uh, and so Donovan Jackson, I can get down with both of them. So I see, and we're all talking about the same kind of position groups. We're talking about guards, we're talking about safeties, and Kevin Banks is a left tackle. Well, is a tackle, but because he's been scrutinized because of his short arms, and so the commentary surrounding him is that he would be better suited to play. Guard in the NFL. But with his athleticism, he has good feet, he has good strength. I'm cool with taking Banks if he's available. He's a guy that I did have in one of my mock drafts that I never produced. But nevertheless, tell me what you guys think about Benjamin Morris. Uh, our video has already gone on to the next person, but Ben Morris. Now, I think if I remember this guy correctly, Benjamin Morris actually got hurt this past season, something with his hip. But all of the commentary around him is that without injury, he would now. Let me be very, very clear. I'm not an advocate of drafting an injured player. Okay. I am not. I wasn't on board with David Ajabo. I wasn't on board with Voorhees. I wasn't on board with there's another player late last year. I think it was Sumac. I think he was also injured. So I definitely don't get down with drafting injured players. But if this guy is healthy, Benjamin Morris on draft Morrison on draft night, I would be okay with the Baltimore Ravens taking him, especially if we trade back. And remember, we're talking about pick 33. Uh, um, uh, um, see, Coach said only fan I like are Starks. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you, Coach, on that as well. I like Starks, and I like. Um, I hope Andrew. Let's just call him Andrew. Let's call him A&M, right? But but yeah. Uh, so you guys tell me what you think about Morrison if he's available at pick. If we were to trade down, of course we're mocking the Ravens. So if we were to trade down, would you guys like Benjamin Morris at um pick 33? Um, let's get to our next person, which you already see his name on the screen. Let me let me see if I can slide it back a little. Let's see if it'll let me do it. Maybe not. It don't matter. Let's keep it rolling. And we're going to look at Watts. Now, Watts is a safety. And Coach, I did hear you. Hey, the only ones you like. And I respect your acumen because you watch way, way more tape than I do. Um, but I did like Watts.
Oh,
I
he
did like his
really
tape.
man. This week is intercepted right down the middle of the defense. It's Watts, Xavier Watts with the pick, and he is still on his feet now as he takes this football down inside the. I think he tried to learn from him. Now hand this football away. It's Lloyd, and Lloyd trying to gain that edge, and you see the speed that he has as he takes a big shot right there at the end.
Quick throw, quick tackle.
Williams drops, flips it to the outside. Williams comes on the football, ball's loose, and it's scooped up. Watts into the end zone. Have a night for Xavier Watts. My goodness.
And so one thing that made me lean for all the guys who were available. Now, Mike Green, let me be honest, be transparent with you guys. Mike Green, edge rush Mike Green, the guy who got all the hype out of the Senior Bowl, he was available, but I don't think it's realistic that he's available at pick 33. That's why I didn't put him in this exercise. But here's why I liked Watts when I watched some tape and then I watched some highlights. This last play that's coming up, this is why I like him.
Tyler Shuck keeps it himself. No, he didn't. Yes, he did. He keeps it himself, and he's still rolling. Tyler Shuck inside the Notre Dame territory. Fumbled the ball. Fumbled at the end. And Notre Dame has it.
Now, now, when you are beat, well, when your team is beat on a play and you don't give up, right? You run, chase the play down, and you make a play on the ball and get a turnover for your team. Effort is what I saw. Effort is what I saw from Watts, which which um which that's what I'm talking about right there, coach. Great effort. That's exactly why. That's exactly why I liked him. When I looked at some tape of some other, I looked at about five guys who were available, and I know safety is something we've been talking about. And when I saw the effort from Watts, I said, okay, we can get down with that. So Benjamin Morris was our first candidate. Watts is the second candidate, and they're both at positions that we say are needs. And I think that even if you guys let me know what you guys think about this, if Ardarius Washington signs his tender, which I don't have a reason to think that he won't, do you think we should ignore safety first round, second round? Or do you think if a guy is on the board, even though it won't be as much of a need, do you guys think we should still take a safety? Because I think um, Ardarius is the only guy from last year that we're waiting to see what he does, right? Everybody else has kind of, found new destinations, and Washington is kind of still on hold, so to speak. And so, do you guys think we still should go safety early in this draft if Washington signs his tender, or do you guys think we should look somewhere else? If he signs, yes, I'm in agreement with that, right? I think A&M. Listen, I didn't know about A&M. Uh, Andrew Makua. I'm sure I'm pronouncing his name wrong, but I didn't know that he was even out there, right? Until one of the other Raven content creators mentioned him. And I said, man, I keep hearing him talked about. Let me go look at him. And so when I looked at him, then I saw Coach talk about him. Then I was like, okay, bam. Let me look more into him. And so and so so yeah, I think if Adarius Washington signs his tender, which I do believe he will, we should look elsewhere. And so again, do you guys like Benjamin Morris? I hadn't seen anybody mention Benjamin Morris. You guys must not be liking him. That's cool. That's cool. Jay Will said we can. Okay, yeah. I like moving Kyle all around the defense, for sure. Um, if we solidify that safety position, and I would love to get that Washington deal signed, that tender signed, so that we go into draft with that question have more of it having been answered versus not being answered. Uh, Yep, yep. Look somewhere else. Yeah, I'm in agreement. Um, okay, let's look at our last guy. So you gotta remember now we traded back, we picked up pick 67 in the third round. So our picks are 33, 59, which is ours, 67, and we also still have 91. And so remember, my goal was to do some real damage in this draft. I wanted to make sure we build depth and we build quality rotation, guys who can come in year one, not have to start, but year one make real impact. Um, and so let's get to our last guy, which is probably my favorite candidate. I love Morrison, I do, but this is probably my favorite candidate who was on the list. Now I've seen some mock drafters have him, up in the 20s in the first round, but I think this guy right here is my favorite option. Let's look at a little bit of his
Arianti
highlights.
Ursary.
All right, and so Ariante Urshri is my favorite candidate because he does a couple of different things. Urshri, um, he does a lot of different things for us. Let's see. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Coach. He is raw. Um, when I was, and you guys all remember when you were in high school, and if colleges were recruiting you if you played ball, that the first things they wanted to know was your height, weight, speed, right? And that's some of the same aspects of college, from college to pro. Of course, I didn't play college ball. My head wasn't in the right place. I was a good athlete, but my head wasn't in the right place. I did have height, weight, speed, um, to play strong safety in college, but that was going to be my position. But nevertheless, so when I look at pro ball, I always start with height, weight, speed, and then I want to go to production. I want to go and see what they actually did on the field. And Urshri is 6'6", 331. And if he's available at 27, I would be okay with taking him there. But I'll be even more excited about pick 33 if we're mocking him. So if we're at pick 33, he's on the board. He does a couple of different things for us. One, he's an immediate left tackle player in the future. Even if we flipped Rosengarten to the left and put Urshri at the right tackle, that can happen definitely in the future. But he has a skill set because of his rawness, as coach mentioned, that we may be able to plug him in at left guard and let him get his feet wet in the NFL at left guard. This dude is big, strong, powerful, has good feet, good length. And other than his rawness, man, I don't see a real flaw in his game. Again, 1 year in an NFL locker room with NFL coaching on an NFL meal plan, an NFL training regimen, and I think Ursary would be a legit left or right tackle, and he would absolutely give the Baltimore Ravens some options. And hey, also, a lot of people were disappointed with Daniel Falele last year. I think that he could slide in at right guard as well. Uh, I think he absolutely could slide in right there and and solidify right guard as well. So, man, that's what I got for you guys today, man. I really, really appreciate you guys for being here. If you guys haven't, liked yet, subscribe yet, please do so, man. And I will catch you guys out in the next live Coach J. Will, Black Daniels, Jeremiah, and all the other people who who plugged in today, man. I appreciate you guys, and we'll get into some more draft stuff today. You guys jump in the comment section. Let me know which candidate you like so I can go ahead and draft them. This is going to be a community draft, and so I'm going to draft whoever you guys uh, have a consensus on. So Benjamin Morris, um, Watts, Xavier Watts safety, or Arante Urshri left or right tackle. All right. I'm Miguel Boulanger, and we are out. Thank you guys. And